Hello everyone and welcome to the Omega Metroid Podcast. My name is Andy Spiteri, joined as always by Dakota Lasky. Dak, how are you doing on this fine Sunday?
I am doing fantastic. Yeah, that's all I've got. I'm doing pretty good. Not too bad. How you doing?
Pretty good. I had a super crazy week,
Yeah.
and this is my second podcast recording of the day. I recorded with my pal Gooey Fame on my other podcast, Virtual Theater. We covered Far Cry, the video game movie.
Wow.
Dak, can I assume that you've never seen Far Cry?
I've never seen Far Cry. No, I have not.
It is so horrible that it's actually so horrible. It's not even one of those ones that like you got to watch it because it's so bad. It's just horrible. You'd never want to watch it. So yeah, that was my morning talking about that horrible movie
Nice.
for a while. So I'm a little bit more excited today to be talking about some Metroid than I am for some Far Cry. So glad to be here and doing this show. I had a lot of really great feedback on our Metroid episode last week. A lot of people pitched some really cool ideas. So that was really awesome. I was really happy with how that one turned out.
Yeah, it was a cool episode. It was nice having Rod on the show as well. So shout outs to him. And yeah, it's again like we were talking about before that episode. It's funny how we talk about the games themselves so often, but I think that was the first time we really talked about actual Metroids. So I thought it was a cool topic, and that was something that was recommended to us by one of the listeners. Jesus. And it was definitely worth it because it was a great topic. So I'm glad we got to chat about it a little bit.
Yeah, 100%. So we have a really good show for you today. We're going to be revisiting one of our very first episodes that we ever did. It was What Do We Want from Prime 4. Back when we first started, we were still kind of getting a feel for the show and putting some of our ideas on the table, and some of them maybe holding back. So we're actually going to revisit that concept and just go even deeper into what we want from Metroid Prime 4 today. But before we get there, we do have a few exciting announcements. If you are listening to the Omega Metroid Podcast, your options for where you can listen have greatly expanded. Dak was very awesome, and this last week while I was out and about, he got us all hooked up to Google Podcasts, Amazon Echo, Amazon Music, Audible, Tuner. I mean, we're literally pretty much anywhere that you can get a podcast. So wherever is most convenient for you, you can now check out the Omega Metroid Podcast.
Yes, I hope it was worth the headache because it wasn't the easiest thing to do. Some of the apps are a little easier to figure out than others, Google. But yes, I'm glad that now we'll have way more options for people to listen to the show, and hopefully maybe some new listeners who might not have checked us out previously because they only used one of the platforms we weren't previously on. So I'm excited for that, and maybe some of those new listeners will bring us some cool new topics. But nonetheless, I am happy that we finally are on pretty much everything, and maybe in the near future we'll jump on a few more platforms. But I think we're on pretty much, like you said, everywhere you could want to find a podcast, we're there.
Yeah, and I mean, if you guys are listening to the show and you want to listen to it on some obscure other podcast device platform, let us know. We'll see if we can hook it up to there and get you going on wherever you want to listen to the show. Before we get into Metroid Prime 4, Dak, we should talk a little bit about the Nintendo Partner Direct that they held on Thursday. These have been kind of disappointing, I feel like, the last couple ones. However, this one in particular was really good, really strong, I thought. We got a new Monster Hunter. We got some other kind of quirky games like Hades and Sniper Elite was in there. But I think the coup de grace, at least for me, and I think for most Metroid fans, is that Ori and the Will of the Wisps is coming to Nintendo Switch, and it's available. Well, it was available on Thursday, so you can go and buy it right now. There is a gorgeous looking collector's edition coming in. It's got the physical copies of both of the Blind Forest and the Will of the Wisps. It's got some artwork. It looks so awesome. I'm really excited for it. I own both of these games on Xbox. They are maybe some of the greatest Metroidvania games ever made, both of them. So I'm really looking forward. I'm going to try and grab that physical edition, the collector's edition, and proudly display that on my shelf. But I'm really excited for a lot of people to experience Ori and the Will of the Wisps. A lot of people that are Nintendo gamers just play whatever is on a Nintendo console, which is too bad because, until Ori and the Blind Forest came over to the Switch, I think that a lot of people were really sleeping on how fantastic that game really is. And we get requests all the time when we do Inspired by Metroid for Ori and the Blind Forest. It will happen. It's going to happen at some point. But man, I'm really, really happy that Will of the Wisps is on its way over to Nintendo Switch.
Yeah, you took the words right out of my mouth. There's so many games that so many people that only play Nintendo consoles, whatever's on there, don't get to experience, and Ori's definitely one of them. I certainly thought, even though I didn't watch the Direct, and I had to be reminded that it even happened, I think the Monster Hunter stuff is cool. I figured they were going to capitalize more on that. Monster Hunter has been super popular, probably the most popular it's ever been. They've had a bunch of great games come out recently. Monster Hunter World was received pretty well. So, and it's cool that they're making like a specific game, for the Switch, so people can get in on that. So yeah, not too bad. I do think it's funny though, because I remember like months and months ago we were like, oh, like after this little mini or partner direct, they got to do a full one. Like, how are they going to keep getting away with doing these small partner directs over and over again? Here we are, like 5 or 6, 7 of those later, where they're still dropping that, and really little else in terms of major news. Of course, we had Age of Calamity announced recently, but other than that, we haven't heard anything about the big first-party franchise that we've been waiting to hear more about in terms of their next games. Though, of course, we did just get the Super Mario 3D All-Stars, which just dropped on Friday.
Yes.
And so that's available. I got my 2 physical copies of 3D All-Stars from Best Buy on time on Friday. Shout out to Best Buy for that. I don't know, they texted me saying it was going to be late, and then it showed up at noon, like a couple hours later. So I was like, all right, cool, sweet. But I got to crack that open, give another World 64, Sunshine, the best one, and Galaxy. And yeah, but other than that, I would like some big news. But this Direct, I would say it wasn't maybe the strongest, but it wasn't the worst. I think Monster Hunter was pretty dope. Hades looks cool. Saw a couple people playing that on Twitch. And yeah, could have been worse.
It could have been worse. I think that this was the best partner direct that they've had yet.
Okay.
Which is, I mean, that's not saying much.
Not a high bar.
Because the last one was like really horrible. It was like 4 or 5 rhythm or music games in a row to start off with. So that was really bad. But we had Monster Hunter on this one. That's a pretty big franchise. We had Ori coming over.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
So I feel like those were heavy hitter announcements, or like heavy hitter-esque anyways. But yeah, I thought that was again, probably the best partner direct that we've had so far. So hopefully that trend continues and they keep on getting better and better. I've been playing Super Mario 64. Man, that game is so good. Although I will say it is a little bit hard to play with no dual analog controls, like for the camera. The camera is a little bit wonky.
They didn't make dual analog controls?
No, so you have the classic camera where you have the like basically what serves the other joystick is basically the C stick, where you can kind of tilt it around you. And the one thing that I notice about Mario 64 that really sticks out is there's no I don't even know how to describe it. Like, when you're playing Zelda and you press L and the camera just focuses right behind you.
Yeah.
Like no matter what. That doesn't exist in Mario 64.
It doesn't, I think,
which is off-putting.
Wasn't the Z button for that? Maybe I'm wrong, but
I mean, maybe I'm wrong and I just haven't mastered the N64 to Switch controls yet. But I was playing for a little bit last night, and those stuck out to me. But it's just such a fun game, and it makes me feel like I'm a kid again. That I just absolutely love it, no matter what. So yeah, that's I got mine on time too. So I'm pleasantly surprised that there wasn't like this gross shortage like I was kind of expecting there to be.
Well, they wanted people to be like, oh, we got to make sure you get it quickly as soon as possible, et cetera, et cetera. And we even saw with the PlayStation event that just happened, and they had, PlayStation 5 go up for pre-order, and people couldn't even get pre-orders in because it was so limited and all of that. So that scarcity we're seeing a lot of these products lately, striking all over the industry. But I am looking forward to playing Galaxy because that's the one I've played the least out of these 3, and that is a really fun game. So yeah, pretty cool that we have this. If only we could get the Metroid version at some point, but hey, I'll take what I can get. as we, crawl our way into through the last quarter of 2020. It's crazy how it's past, is mid-late September 2020 right now.
Well, this year can't end soon enough, and I can't wait for next year. Which, yeah, I mean, that's a big one for Metroid. So looking forward to seeing what, if anything, Nintendo has in store for Metroid for its anniversary. But let's save that for another day. Let's get on to Metroid Prime 4, Dak. Again, this is one of the ones that we covered at the very beginning of the podcast here, so we'll try not to reiterate some of the things that we said way back when. If you want to catch up and check that episode out, you could definitely do so. That's in the archives. Let's get started on some of the things that we most want to see in Metroid Prime 4. So one thing that I did was I didn't focus a whole lot on story, because I feel like we kind of did a good job of that last week.
Yeah.
I more so focused on some of the things like around the game, and like specific things like about the game itself rather than settings and stuff like that. But I did want to kick off with just the one story thing that I did have. My big wish is that we get like some kind of not even necessarily a resolution, but like just some kind of closure on like what happened to that Metroid egg that was stolen from Federation Force by Silex. Because I really think that like if they do that and they make that a focal point of the game of Metroid Prime 4, or at least like a major plot point, you could really like retroactively make Federation Force a much more important game, which to me would be a cool thing to see, because that game is very mediocre, and a lot of people I think passed on it. So just if it would inspire some people to maybe go back and give that game a shot, so they could get caught up on like where did this egg come from, what's the backstory behind it, what's going on, I think that would be cool. And also just because I think that the storytelling potential is really cool to see, like, okay, this is how we're gonna almost reintroduce Metroids into the Metroid series. So storyline wise, I think that that's one thing that I really hope shows up and is followed up on.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I'm still going on the idea from last week where Silex has his own baby Metroid that he tries to fuse with to create Silex Prime, and that happens. So if you missed that, go back and listen to last week's episode, because I thought that was all a universally agreed upon great idea. And yeah, I do agree nonetheless, even if they don't do that, of course. I would like to see if they give us some resolution to what's happening with that Metroid larva, and by extension, Silex. I know you want to see maybe a little more Silex, or I don't know, maybe others want to see Silex show up in other games. I think I'd be satisfied with seeing his story end there, or at least the majority of it, or at least a conclusive story in some cases. Doesn't necessarily have to die, but it would be cool at that point. But yeah, I would like to see some resolution from that Metroid larva scenario from Federation Force. Though I guess whether or not it makes Federation Force like have more weight or be more valuable in terms of the canon or as a game in general, that doesn't mean much to me, because you can just like watch that cutscene on YouTube if you really want to. But
yeah.
But I'm with you there.
I'm almost thinking like, because I mean at the time Metroid 2 Return of Samus was like, I don't want to say it was a throwaway game, but it wasn't like a major console game, right? But it was like important to the story, which led to it being like remade later on. And I don't know, maybe I'm just kind of thinking like maybe if there is something that is important to the story in Federation Force, we can get like a second crack at the can of that. Maybe they can remake it. I don't know. Maybe it's good just to leave it kind of buried where it is. But yeah, I don't know. Just it would be cool to like see at least some kind of relevance given to Federation Force, because it's unfortunately probably the most irrelevant Metroid game. But yeah, that was my big wish for the storyline setting in Metroid Prime 4. And I'll do two in a row here, Dak, and then I'll give it over to you. I think that the one thing that I want to see is DLC for this game, which I think is almost assuredly that we're going to get. But the kind of DLC that I want to see is like full-on like story missions. And I think that it would be very, very cool if you could play as like Silex. I think that would just be so cool. It would be a different kind of weapon. It'd be a different presentation. You've never played as anyone but Samus in the series before, so I think that could be really awesome. Maybe like you have kind of an an extra story mission or something like that. And of course, this is depending on like the story of the game. So like if Silex is more of like the anti-hero, then I think that this could work. If he's just like the straight up main villain, then this probably doesn't work. But if he's a straight up main villain, then I would really want like an extra story campaign for DLC, kind of like the Champions Ballad for Breath of the Wild. But like maybe you could go onto like an explore an extra ship or something like that in space, or like they could insert almost like in Metroid Prime 3 when you have to find the energy cells into the planet. Maybe the DLC could insert these energy cells or whatever somewhere into the world. It gives you another excuse to go back and look for them, and then you can unlock something like a Valhalla flagship and delve deeper into there. Some kind of story content like that, I think would be like really wicked. And then like obviously like for DLC, I think that like it'd be so wicked if you could have like suits from previous games, and those are available to Samus. Like if you got the Phazon suit, if you got the fusion suit, I mean like that would be so wicked. The light suit, that would be a no-brainer to me to put in. So yeah, I think that I definitely want it to have some kind of DLC, and I would be hoping that it could be like, you know, something fairly substantial story-wise. What do you think about that?
I think that'd be cool. Even if like Silex is like the bad guy at the end of the day, I still think it'd be cool to play as the bad guy for a few missions. Like maybe we get to see like what Silex is up to at certain points of the game when like maybe he's not like Samus isn't directly engaging with him in the main campaign. Like maybe Silex is off doing something else, and in like the DLC side, you know, mission we get like that perspective from Silex. You get to play it out. I think that'd be cool. I don't necessarily think he has to be like somewhat good and not necessarily too evil to play as that. I wouldn't be against playing as the bad guy. I think it'd be cool. And if Silex is certainly involved in Prime 4, yeah, why not? I think the idea of having additional like missions on the side would be really sick. I've always thought like, for example, for Metroid Prime 2, if we ever got some missions of playing as the Marines that are on Aether that you kind of run into as like corpses, I've always wanted to play a mission like from that and like play that like perspective. So maybe if they can even pull that off somehow. So I'm about that. I think like if they do kind of these side missions to really expand the story and our perspective and give us, you know, a different means of traversing the world of Prime 4 and not necessarily just doing it through Samus through the main campaign, I'm totally about it. Now, if they can include that in the game and I don't have to pay for it, and it's not DLC, then I'm even more for it. But yeah, these days I would certainly be something that like is added as like an expansion, some kind of DLC that they'll make a big deal of in some kind of director. Maybe they won't, but I'm down for that.
I almost see DLC as like a sign from Nintendo that like, okay, this is a big game and we're gonna keep supporting it. Like DLC to me is only really in like, you know, the big Nintendo games like Breath of the Wild, Fire Emblem,
Mario Kart,
Splatoon. That's yeah, exactly. Like so by virtue of Metroid having DLC, that just seems to me like this is a big time like game. You know what I mean?
No, I 100% agree. Yeah, absolutely. If they're adding more content, it shows that they consider it to be enough of a draw to get more money out of people, and I'm totally about that. So yeah, I got one for you though.
Yeah,
and I'm just gonna go for a big one right out the gate. What do you think about co-op in campaign? Would you want to have, you know, the ability to play with, let's say, one more person in the main story campaign? Now, I'm gonna say before I get your answer that because I want to lay it out a little bit, is I wasn't originally about this. I thought, no, I don't want that. I just want to be able to play it through myself. You know, obviously a big part of the Metroid experience is that isolation and the ambience that comes from that, exploring it on your own. But I still think that can be achieved with another player character. And I thought, you know what? I think one of the coolest things that could happen is going through a Metroid Prime experience, having it still be that kind of isolated deal, but you do have a partner maybe, and maybe that partner could help you get some puzzles done or, you know, fight in combat and all that kind of stuff. And it could have some story implications too. Let's say if it was Prime 4, with Samus and Silex working together, right? Which I don't think should happen or will happen, but let's say it could. That would probably be the character they'd use as like the co-op campaign character, the arbiter to Samus's chief. But I think it'd be cool. I think there'd be a lot of gameplay opportunities and like be able to open up the sandbox of the Metroid Prime gameplay loop, for example, and give you some more things to do with another character who could help you out here and there, and still lay on those themes and and notes that you get from previous Prime games. So I originally didn't want this, but now that I think about it, I was like, maybe it would be cool to play Prime with someone else. Like, maybe I don't want to just play by myself every time. And so now I'm wondering, Andy, what do you think about having the ability to play co-op for campaign for Metroid Prime 4?
Okay, so this is I'm going to preface my answer with two things. First, I think that I'm open to anything if I can see it, like how it's done. Like if I can get a good proof of concept, then I'll be like, okay, I'll give this a try. Like I'll try anything once, right? I'm surprised that you suggested this because when we were pitching our Metroid movies way back when, I had kind of a similar approach for a movie, and I don't think you liked that at all. And to answer your question, I don't really like this at all. I think that, you nailed it. Like the experience of being isolated and alone on this alien planet is really kind of the tone setter for Metroid, and I don't know that can be achieved to as great of an extent with a co-op campaign, basically. Could this make sense if it was like Samus is your primary player and like your secondary player was like a baby Metroid or something? Like that could maybe make sense to me. But like if we're talking about two hunters or something like that going into whatever planet, that doesn't really click with me. I think I would rather have and I don't even want this, but like I think if we were going to go that route, I'd rather have like a separate kind of multiplayer option for Prime that's not part of the main story, where like you can do a deathmatch or you can do co-op. And to be frank, like I don't even want that, actually. I'd rather have more levels than I would have the developers spend time on multiplayer. Would I hate it if it was in the game? Probably not. I think that, like I said, like anything, if it's done correctly, can be awesome. It's just, I don't know. I don't know that I would be in love with the idea just on paper. I'd have to see, how and why and just kind of the reasoning behind it. But yeah, I think just on the surface that wouldn't be something I would be too excited about.
Yeah, I was thinking about it again. It goes back to like, do you want to experience this on your own? That's like a big part of Metroid Prime and really Metroid in general. But at the same time, I kind of like having, number one, I kind of like having that character to bounce off of every once in a while. That's one of the reasons I really like Fusion, is I like the Samus and Adam relationship there. But number two, I still think you can pull off isolationist stuff with two characters, right? Even if like you might not be alone, but if you just have only one person with you and you're still in this big, expansive and possibly empty world, you're still kind of isolated. And it does open things up to having a little more dialogue, a little something happening, which I think would be good. I don't know if we like just running this like in 2020 or whenever this game comes out, right? I don't know if we could do like a Metroid Prime where there isn't a lot of like actual like dialogue or plot happening. And obviously as the Prime games went on, they added the Luminoth and they added some more stuff. Obviously Prime 3 has a bunch of other characters that you talk to or talk at you, whatever. And I like that stuff. I think if there was a balance and you had that one other character who could play off with a little bit and add some more intimacy and not like in a romantic way, but like intimacy with another character,
Right.
and play off emotions, I think that might be good for the game. But I can understand from a gameplay perspective maybe not wanting that. But again, I also was thinking that it could open up some more opportunities for how the game would be played, right? And I think that's an interesting thing. But I'm going to give you another one since you did two in a row. So
Okay.
I'll do another one. I'm going to preface by this one saying that I would love to have more ship interactions while you're fighting. So like being able to control the ship. So this might be a two-parter for you. I don't know if you'll agree with both. I would love to be able to control more of the ship like at once, be able to call stuff in, get some backup, like open things up for you, like do some kind of something. Like I think having more control of your ship while you're playing would be really cool. And as an extension of that, going even further, I think it would be really cool if there was at least one section of the game where you're in the ship, controlling the ship, and you're either just above the surface of the planet, whatever, and you're fighting stuff like big, space pirates, or not big, big masses of space pirates like flying around, like jetpack space pirates, or just groups on the ground, or troops, whatever, or other space pirate ships, or whoever the enemy is at the time. Or even something, like a Long Night of Solace where you're out in orbit and you're fighting in space, kind of, Star Wars style. And I think that'd be really sick to actually be in control of the ship for once and fight it out, even if it's for, a small section of the game. And it doesn't necessarily just have to be like, dogfighting or anything with other ships. But I think could be some cool ways for them to have Samus like maybe use the ship to, I don't know, unlock access to something on a cliffside. You got to destroy some stuff or pull stuff down or take out some troops with the help of your ship and then jump in and use it to get there in time or something like that. I think that'd be cool. What do you think about that? The two parts though. What do you think about being able to use your ship more as you're playing in first person, on the ground, boots on the ground as Samus? And what do you think about actually having a section of the game where you are piloting her ship and using that in all sorts of ways?
Okay, so there's a lot to unpack there. And actually, I had two that are almost directly in answer to both of your wish list points there. So I'll start off with the ship. I've made it known before that I think it would be really cool to fight in space on the ship, and I loved having the ship in Metroid Prime 3. But actually, I think that for Metroid Prime 4 specifically, I want to go the other direction and kind of take it back to the basics. I think that idea is great, but I'm gonna assume that Prime 4 is gonna be like the start of a new kind of story arc, right? And to me, I feel like that kind of big scale gameplay should kind of be saved for the crescendo of the story. I actually went the other direction. One of my next things on my list was that I wanted to be stuck on one planet with a ship that was basically grounded, because I love Metroid Prime 3, but one of the things about that game is like it feels to me like you can hop around a little bit too much from planet to planet, which I think works for that game, but I think that for Prime 4, what I just kind of had in my mind is like a back to the basics experience. Like you're delving deep into this planet, your ship is there, and it's like this temporary refuge, but like you know that you can't depend on it, and you have to leave it, and you have to press deeper into the planet. I would like to see that eventually, like fighting in space and like fighting, like using your ship more. I really loved that gimmick from Metroid Prime 3. I don't know if I want that in Metroid Prime 4. I think that I could save that for another game, maybe down the line when like the action kind of ramps up, because in my head I'm picturing like a more kind of intimate planet experience where like you're on this planet wherever it may be, and you're figuring out what's going on and kind of unlocking the secrets of the planet. I think that is where Metroid is really strong. So that's kind of where I want this to go back to, versus like you can kind of hop around from like planet to planet to planet, because I want the setting of Metroid Prime 4 to like really have personality and really be like a character in that story. So I like your idea, but I don't know that I want it for Metroid Prime 4 yet. Maybe for like another game, down the line. I think that would be really cool actually, but for the kind of experience that like I myself want for Prime 4, I would probably leave that one off the table for now.
You're getting hopeful there, because that's assuming we'll even get a Metroid Prime 5 or a 6, right? Saving it for another game. We haven't even gotten this one.
I'm definitely hopeful. I'm optimistic.
I am not. I see. It's interesting you say that. Like, you think that this will be the start of a new trilogy. I don't. I think this is gonna be the last Prime game. Like Prime, as we know, like connected to the other ones. I don't know if it'll be start of a new trilogy necessarily. So what I'm thinking about is like, oh, this is a story that'll have its crescendo, climax, and fall in it of itself, right? And we wouldn't have to wait for like 2-3 games down the line to get those moments. I think that this game would have it in a, within that one package. But also, I don't think that like, because you have the ship involved, that you necessarily have to go all the way in the, okay, we're flying around here and there and going from one planet to another. I think there could be a middle ground where like you stick to one planet, there could still be some battle, in orbit of that planet above it, or using the ship to some degree. I don't think it has to like be maxed out and like all of a sudden there's another big huge war above this planet, or you're fighting on 6 different ones back to back to back, then you're jumping around. I think there could be some kind of balance struck, because I would like to see this, and I wouldn't want to wait 3 games to have it happen. And again, I'm looking back at like Long Night of Solace from Reach, which if you think about that game has all those big crescendo moments, and that's technically a prequel, you know. So, and it has its own self-contained story. I guess it's like I'm thinking about Prime 4 in that it's going to be pretty self-contained. I think just because I don't think they have a big grand plan to do more games after this. They're really just hoping this is gonna stick. So I don't think they're gonna go for a back to basics
Sure.
subdued kind of game, because this one really has to win. Like, this has to be a winner. This has to be a big seller, and I think they'll lean more into something that's a bit more grandiose than going back to something that's a little simpler. But I think it should strike a balance between those things. It should capture that like initial feeling of that like the original Metroid Prime had, while still being its own big story in its own right, and hitting those big notes. At least how I'm looking at it. Because again, I don't know if we'll get Prime 5 or 6, so I would like it all to happen in this one. But yeah, I think
Right.
there's some cool opportunities to work the ship in more, especially not just like to go full sci-fi on it, but you know, expand the Metroid formula a little bit, use it to get access to things and here and there, and use it as a tool rather than just as a weapon, right? But at the same time, I think flying around would be really sick. And I think at this point, you know,
Sure.
it's been decades since we've been introduced to our gunship, right? And we've never taken control of it like really. Like Prime 3 was really the only time we really tasted that and teased like being able to use it a lot. And it did have some cool functionality, but I would love for them to go, farther with that. And I think it would be kind of weird if like Prime 3 has like some ship control stuff and like works with that, and then you go to the next game and it kind of gets rid of it. I think that'd be kind of weird, like continuity wise and also just gameplay wise, because it would feel like, at least to me, a bit of a step back if they didn't continue to flesh that out. But I see what you're saying. Like, I wouldn't, it doesn't necessarily have to go like super far
Well,
maxed
and
out.
to clarify, I'm not suggesting that Metroid Prime 4 end on a cliffhanger either. Like, I think that like, in my mind, I think that Metroid Prime 4 is going to echo Metroid Prime in a lot of ways, where it's going to be a self-contained experience, but like you can still have like those little breadcrumbs for the next game. Like, I think you're right. Like, there really is no guarantee that there's going to be more Metroid Prime games after this, and this one needs to sell. But like, traditionally speaking, critically and sales wise, like the best performing Metroid games were Metroid Prime and Metroid on the NES, and like, so I feel like they're going to try and stick as close to that Prime formula as they can, or at least that would be my wish. I mean, there's definitely some room for some middle ground where like you can utilize your ship, but I don't know, like the fact that we also did that in Prime 3, which was, I mean at this point it's going to be like 15 years since that game came out by the time that we ever get Metroid Prime 4. But like, still, in the last Metroid Prime game, you were able to control your ship, so I don't know that they'd go back to the same kind of gimmick. I think they might try and create something new. I wouldn't be upset if we had that. I just think, like, for the type of Metroid game that I would want it to kind of stick a little bit more closely to the same kind of thing that we saw in Metroid Prime.
Right.
So yeah, but I mean, that being said, like, I think it would be awesome, like, to eventually like have this big space battle where you're in Samus's gunship, and like you're taking out pirates, and like I think that'd be wicked. I think that that's what probably should have happened in Metroid Prime 3, actually,
Yeah,
which is kind of a missed opportunity. But
I agree.
so to go back to what you were saying before about co-op, the next thing on my list, which I think could be a solution to what you pose, is I want full on voice acting for this game. So I know that Metroid Prime 3 had voice acting sort of, but like, I'm talking like, I want professional, well done voice acting for this game. And I think that what I would want that for is, instead of scanning like pirate data or Chozo lore or whatever, just have it be an audio log instead of a text log that can play while you're like exploring. And I know that that's like in every single game, but I think that it's in a lot of games because it really works. I think that is a good way to make you more immersed into the world. Even if I guess you kind of run into the problem of like, you are recording this in a different Chozo language, but I think that is where like you could almost have like a Cortana come in or something like that, or like let's say Adam. Let's just throw that name out there. Where like you can talk to Adam, like maybe he's on your ship. You can talk to him. He can translate the Chozo data. He can read it out to you. You can communicate. He's not there physically with you, but at least you have like a comm link to him. And I'm not saying Adam specifically, but like something like that would, I think, really go a long way. Where you at least have some kind of voices, some kind of interaction to kind of break the isolation, but keep Samus by herself. I think that by having the voice acting like that, that could really work and kind of serve both purposes of what we were talking about.
Yeah, I would love to have full voice acting. I mean, I don't want to read the the dialogue the whole time. I like having the captions and all that. That's all cool in case I need it, but I need full voice acting as far as I'm concerned. I want to be able to see or hear that, and I think it's more than enough time has happened where time has passed where we've gone beyond just like reading the text and not actually getting full voice acting. And I think that goes back to like why, and you brought up co-op, but that's why I kind of wanted that. I would love to have like Samus and another hunter talking about stuff, or Samus and Adam or whatever it is, right? And that's what I liked about Fusions having that dialogue. But that was a Game Boy Advance game from 2001 or whatever, right? So I would love if Prime 4 had the full voice acting. I wouldn't mind hearing Samus talk. I don't think they have to have her do this like monotonous voice that they seem to do with her for some reason, But even if and I think even if she doesn't talk a lot, like she could just have like a couple words here and there. I would like to hear voice acting. It does immerse you in it a little more. It makes it more serious. I could take it more seriously. And I think it's more compelling when you actually get good voice acting. You hear the emotion of the actors, and that really plays into
Yes.
how you experience the game rather than just reading it off of your screen. So I'm 100% with you. I would love more opportunities for that. So whether there's a character that's, it's not like, it's some kind of AI or it's someone that, she's reporting to or whatever it is, right? Like having that, voice acting, I think that'd be great. So I'm 100% there with you on that one.
And I think that one is probable.
I think that's probable too. Yeah.
In terms of all the things that we're wishing for here, I think that one's probably a fairly safe bet that there's going to be voice acting of some sorts. This is going to sound stupid, but like, also give me an option to turn off subtitles if people are talking. I hate that. I hate reading subtitles when I'm playing a game or watching a show. It takes me out of it. I just want to see like, I just want to hear the dialogue and like look at what's happening. Have the option there for people that like it, but please, dear God, have the option there to take it away for people that don't like it, like me.
Yeah.
And which is strange because like that's not an option in Breath of the Wild, and it drives me nuts.
I agree. When you like, at least you're watching it, like going through it the first time. For me, like I turn them off if I can because I'm paying attention the most. I want to just see it as it's presented without any kind of overlay of text or anything like it. Once I've played through a game or watched a TV show or movie, I like throwing the captions on because I don't need to pay attention as hard. And sometimes I want to be able to, it helps me like hear it better, at least for me. But having the option, more options, the better. I'm with you. I shouldn't have to be forced to see the subtitles show up on the screen. And it kind of takes you out of it a little bit, at least the first time you play it. So I'm there with you. The more options, the better.
Yep. Yeah, I totally agree.
Got another one for you.
All right.
So this one I was thinking about. What were you think about like a variation of like a horde mode or like firefights? So like here's what I was thinking. So if you ever play let's say, I don't know, again, I'm bringing like Halo or Gears of War, they have like, modes where it's just wave after wave of enemy coming after you, right? And I thought, oh, that'd be cool, but it's not really like too Metroid-y, right? It's just like kind of FPS stuff. Like, how could they do it a little more Metroid-y? So I thought, what if there was like a mode where your objective is to escape? Like it's escape sequences from Metroid games, but you got to like collect some stuff on the way or like complete some objectives. So it's not so you have like kind of waves of enemies coming at you, but you got to get to a certain destination, or you got to find an item or something like that, or you got to get the upgrade while doing that, or maybe like limited time missions where it's not necessarily an emergency escape sequence, but stuff like that, like a mode where it kind of tests your skills a little bit in terms of like taking on enemies, but also finding things and searching for items that are hidden somewhere in like a limited amount of time, and it's in kind of like a variation of like a horde mode. What do you think?
That could work. Um, I don't know that like I think that would work better as a sequence than maybe like a full blown like game mode. Like I think that if you were to have like an escape sequence where you are timed and like maybe you need to like take out like tons of different enemies before you can clear a room or before a door unlocks like that, I think that that could be cool. um yeah, I don't know. I mean like I'm obviously not like as much of an FPS gamer as you, so like I haven't played a ton of modes like that. So you know I would be open to it. If like it all goes back to like how it's implemented into the game, if it makes sense, the how, the what, the why, right? And like if they can check those boxes, I mean if they can check those boxes, like literally everything that we suggest can fit into the game, right?
For
So
sure, but I
yeah,
was trying to make it like because I don't necessarily want just like a straight up horde mode. I was like, how can it be like tailored to be more of a Metroid experience, right? Like,
right.
so I thought like maybe incorporating the emergency escape sequences would be really cool. So it's not just like you're fighting through a wave, but it's like a string of like missions where you start it and the alarm's already going off and you got to hustle, right? And maybe you could, it'd be cool for like speedrunners to see how quickly they could do those and stuff like that. Um, I think that'd be
Yeah.
cool. I thought like, and it also goes back to like, oh, how sick would it be just kind of like be in an area and just taking out like wave after wave of space pirates until you go down. But I thought maybe incorporating a little bit of like item pickup or exploration around an area and its limited time would make it a little more Metroidy. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean like I said, I would be fine with that if it made sense in the context of the story. Like I think like for me in general, and I know we've kind of talked about this before, but like I know that you're hoping that they have a multiplayer mode in Prime, and like I'm pretty indifferent to that. I think if I had to pick, I would rather them focus on like building me an extra big world than also adding in multiplayer. So like if it's a separate mode, then I'm a little bit more lukewarm on it. But if they can implement that mode into the game and make it seamless, like I'm totally down for that. Like totally.
Yeah, I'm also with you that I would like them to make this as like really awesome, as awesome of a campaign as they can, right? And that's like the fine tuning and balance that's hard, right? Because at one point,
Right.
like I would love for them to do some multiplayer and some cool modes or bring hunters back, whatever. At the same time, like I'd really, really also like this really big, expansive, deep campaign that they can add a lot to while not overstaying its welcome because that is really the
Right.
bread and butter of what we want here. So, finding that kind of medium there, it's gonna be hard. Like they have a lot to deliver on, right? Like people's expectations for like the actual campaign itself, but also the full package, right? Like will people be happy if it's just the campaign, right? Like it would have to be really good. But will people be mad if they did all these other modes and like oh they devoted resources to this and not that. So I don't I don't envy them,
Like
right? As Retro Studios has a
no,
big
it's a tough
job on their
spot.
shoulders.
For me, like even though I kind of poo pooed on it like way back when in our Hunters episode, like if you're gonna do the multiplayer route and you're gonna add in the modes, like I feel like if you're gonna do that, just make it its own game because like I'm not convinced that the people that like that are like I'm not convinced that Metroid Prime fans are like the type of fans that really love the multiplayer aspects, but those fans do exist that love multiplayer. So like tailor make that game to them and have it be a little bit more like friendly towards first person shooter conventions while making Prime 4 for like the hardcore Metroid fans that have been waiting for like forever, while also making that as appealing as possible to your average fan. I mean, you're right. It's a tough spot that they're in. I don't envy them.
I'm with you there. I'm as much as I thought it'd be cool to have like a multiplayer suite. Yeah, if they just do its own thing and have make them separate, that's also cool too. Yeah, not against that.
Okay, so I've got one for you, Dak, and it's kind of similar to what you just suggested. So we hear all the time that Samus is this world-renowned bounty hunter, but we never see her hunt bounties. Now, what if in this game there was like kind of a side quest almost where like you could go into your ship's AI, you could get a list of bounties on the planet, they're monsters on the planet they're optional. You can go and fight them. It's basically a big boss fight. I'm kind of stealing from Final Fantasy 12 here, where they have the marks and stuff like that, or even Monster Hunter. You can go and fight these optional bounty fights, and like maybe if you defeat them in exchange, you can get like, I don't know, like an upgraded missile, or like
skill points,
maybe a suit, something, yeah, something like that, or like a new suit color, or like something cool, right?
Yes.
Like, I think it would be cool to like kind of lean in on Samus being a bounty hunter, because like we're only told that, we never see that. And I mean, I guess if you want to count hunting the Metroids, we see that, but really otherwise not really. So like, would it, I don't know how that would make sense yet in the context of the game. Maybe the Federation knows what planet she's going to and has a list of dangerous species there. Maybe there's like a native species on whatever planet she's on that asks her to do this. I don't know how we get there, but I think that the concept could be kind of cool, and also add in some more boss fights to Metroid.
I'm 100% with you. Samus is literally not a bounty hunter. She's only a bounty hunter in name. I totally with you, and I think that's a great idea, because I've thought of it in like a different way, where she was like hunting actual like other people, you know, and she'd go around and try and hunt those down. Like, I don't know how that would work, but I like this idea of like, you're already on the planet. It would be optional. You can take out these bigger challenges, these bigger bosses and creatures and whatnot, and you know, use that to upgrade or customize your look or something like that. That would be really sick. I love that idea, because it's not forced. It you know, leads into her actually being a bounty hunter, not just essentially a soldier, which is what she pretty much is. And it would also be a cool opportunity to introduce some like crazier enemy types and like bigger bosses and stuff that might be a harder challenge, but you don't have to go for it. It's like, you know, you got like, you're playing Paper Mario and you have like the Pit of 100 Trials you don't gotta do. But if you do it, there's like a bunch of other like enemies you'd never run into normally, and they're harder to fight. I think that'd be really cool. And like they'd be like all scattered around the planet, so you might be able to take some on as you're playing the game normally, and then you go and run around and backtrack and try to hunt down the other ones. And maybe some of them move, some of them are in specific locations you find them, but other ones are like moving around. You could, maybe one would like, you'd run into it like you're in the middle of like a story mission or something like that, and then you see this huge like mark go by, this huge giant monster, right, or whatever it is, a big enemy. You're like, oh, that's one of my bounties, and you just like detour and take that out. I think that'd be sick. I would love it if they did that, and also had it optional, but at the same time like give you opportunities to yourself, like create opportunities for those two things to cross, and not necessarily have them completely separate. But I love that idea, and it'd be great to you know fight I don't know, something big and upgrade your ship or your suit color, or you know, give yourself another upgrade or something like that based on, you know, getting credits off of that mark and whatnot. I think that's a really cool idea, and I would love that. And to add to that, I really hope that they add bigger enemy types in Metroid Prime. Like, I really love fighting the big enemies. I think it'd be really cool if they like use that, you know, that side quest bounty feature you're talking about to like introduce a lot bigger enemies that like maybe they have a few in the main campaign, but I think it'd be really cool.
Maybe they have Kraid.
There you go.
Yeah,
they could
baby.
have Kraid. Kraid could be one of the secret, you know, optional bosses. That'd be sick. I love fighting like Thardis. I think is a really fun fight, and the Elite Pirate and all that, and obviously some of the bigger like Quadraxis thing is kind of big if I remember correctly. But there are a lot of big bosses in Metroid Prime, but I want more of those. And now I'm gonna hit you with another. I'm just gonna say I agree. I think this is a great idea. I love it. I love it. But what do you think about having like a boss that is like a Shadow of the Colossus style boss, where you're like, you gotta traverse this huge beast and like you're grappling, hooking up its like back, and you gotta fight all across it and not fall off? What do you think about that? Would that be cool? I think that'd be sick.
I think that'd be great.
Yeah, I'm down for that.
Honestly, I think that'd be really cool. I think that would fit in perfectly too, to like, if you have like a bounty hunting system, like you've got this big, indestructible, immovable object monster that like nobody can take down. The only person that has any chance is famed bounty hunter Samus, and she's gonna go and like and tackle it. I think that'd be great. I actually like really love the Shadow of the Colossus concept, where like you were fighting this like giant being. I think that's fantastic, and I think that really could fit into if they decided to do like this mode where like you can go and find, you know, these creatures. I think that'd be really cool. And actually, to your point earlier too, like you could have your cake and eat it as well, because you could also hunt like humanoids or other
Yeah.
like hunters necessarily. Like imagine if one of the Prime hunters was like a special bounty or something like that. You know, what I don't know if it makes sense for him to be there, but like even if it was just kind of like an Easter egg final battle kind of a thing where like you can engage with this other hunter or like something like that, right? Like I think that by having this as like a optional kind of a side deal, you can really like you can have some leeway with it to bring back someone like a Kraid or something like that, where like maybe does it make absolute story sense for him to be there? No, but that's okay because it's not part of the story. It's optional. And B, really get some like really diverse boss type of characters in there, like someone giant like Kraid, someone maybe even small that you need to fight in morph ball form. I think that it could really add like versatility to the game, and it would be like a really great way to to expand the game and just have you playing beyond the main campaign. Because I feel like I'm hoping that there's something that that they add if they're not going to add multiplayer, and I don't think they will. Then I feel like there's got to be something. Either it's going to be a really long campaign,
Right.
or maybe it'll be more of an emphasis on speed running, or maybe it'll be this like some kind of side quest system. But like I feel like there's going to be something.
Right. I'm definitely with you there. I really like the quest idea. I think that'd be so cool. You know what I would also like for the game to have is a day-night cycle potentially, and like a weather system. I think that'd be really cool. I think one of the things that I've always thought from Metroid Prime is like, how cool would it be to go through like the Chozo ruins, like, or Skytown during the night, right, or at twilight or something like that. And certain areas become like super dark, and you got to use your X-ray visor or whatever it is. Like maybe you don't even have access to that yet, and you got to go through areas in the dark, or it's raining really hard, or it's not raining at all, or it's snowing, or it's super windy and all that. Like it would be so cool to be able to traverse like areas in a different way and be able to, because of the changes that are being made in like a dynamic kind of system like that, but also fight against like the forces of nature and all of that. And also some areas become a lot scarier or harsher because it's nighttime. Maybe different enemies will come out, and harder bosses and enemy types come out at nighttime and all that kind of stuff. I think that'd be really cool. And now I'm like, damn, they'd have to put so much in this game for this all to happen. But I think it would be really sick. It would make the game feel even more dynamic and less static. You go through the same areas, and if you're backtracking a lot, I think it would make the game feel a little more varied, because as we know from Metroid games, like you got to expect the backtracking, you got to expect going into different areas multiple times. And we were talking about Metroid Fusion a few episodes ago, and how you go through Sector 2 and it's like it has different layers that are look really different, but like as the time goes on, like the area changes and all that over time. I really would like for them to go further with that, and have the areas change over time as you play the game, but also be changing as real time passes, and have like a day night, have the weather change here and there, and give you something different to expect every time you go through an area. Like, oh, you go through Chozo Ruins, it's not that scary going through daytime, and then nighttime it's really dark, there's shadows, there's like it's super like pitch black out, and stuff comes out that can see you, and you might not necessarily be able to see it, and it's all of a sudden feels like it's a completely different place. I would love that. I've always wanted that from Metroid Prime.
Yeah, you nailed it. That's awesome. Like, and then that one seems like an obvious one, actually, that like I can't believe I didn't think of either. But like, yeah, I just think that like the dynamic of like going from day to night, the different colors that you could get there, the different uses for your visor, I think that'd be fantastic. And you know what? Now that you've said it, like I feel like that's fairly probable as well, that we'll have a day and night cycle. It like, I mean, even in Breath of the Wild, we see day and night cycles. Specific enemies come out only at night. So, I mean, yeah, I don't think that is impossible by any means. I think that one is actually maybe one of the more likely ones now that you've said it. Assuming that we're on a planet and not in some kind of spaceship, of course.
I hope we're on a planet, man. If we had another game where we're stuck on some bottle ship or gallon ship or a bowl ship, or whatever, some other appliance or something, like, I don't know. Like, I'm sick of that. Like, give me a planet to explore.
I'm with you on that one. I want a planet. Okay, I got one last one.
Okay.
I would love to see a remix of a classic Metroid theme. in this game. So in Prime 1, we had the remix of Lower Norfair. In Prime 2, we had the remix of Red Brinstar. In Prime 3, we had the remix of Phendrana Drifts. I would love to see, like, I don't know, like maybe Green Brinstar or the Surface of SR388, or maybe even like the Torian theme remade in like that Prime style music. I think that'd be very cool. I think that each Prime game has given us like one remix so far. So yeah, I would love to see that tradition continue.
I'm with you there. It's actually surprised me that there aren't more remixes and like, or references in the Prime tracks. There are some, but like, yeah, I think it's pretty safe, like a pretty safe bet that we'll be getting at least one major remix from like a previous game.
Yeah.
I'm with you there. I think that's cool, but I also like how Prime has a lot of. I mean, so many of the Prime trilogy's iconic tracks are original. So
Right, yeah. So I that's why I only want one.
Yeah, okay.
Because I want that new original music, but I do like just kind of having that like one track that plays that it's like, oh, this is a remix of this.
Absolutely, I'm with you there. I really hope maybe we get like a medley too. That'd be cool. But on the topic of music, because this is I was thinking about this too, and I'm thinking this a little more broadly. So do you think that like the Prime games, like you think the style of music is gonna stay pretty similar to the first three, or you think we're gonna see maybe a bit of a change in terms of the sound and the style of the music in Metroid Prime 4?
You know what? Like, this goes back to what we were talking about a few weeks ago. Where like I think that they're calling this game Metroid Prime 4 not because it's like the fourth game chronologically, but just to like assure Metroid fans that like it's going to be the same style, like first person exploration gameplay. It's going to have, and I think that the music is going to fall into that too. It's going to have that signature. I mean, I'm no music expert, but like that Prime sound when you hear it, right? Like kind of the high pitched whatever. So I would be surprised if that didn't carry over into this game. I mean, obviously it will evolve. It's been 13 years since the last Metroid Prime game came out, so like I do anticipate some kind of evolution in the music, but I also think that like you can retain that style, because that's really what it is. It's not like a type of music, rather that it's a style of music that they have. So I think that they can retain that in this game. And I think that they will, because, like I said, the game that I'm picturing, at least in my head, kind of takes Metroid Prime back to the basics and, like, gets you, resituated, recomfortable with Metroid Prime. Hopefully this is going to be the first Metroid Prime for a lot of people that have never played it yet. So, yeah, I think that they will go to that familiar type of sound for this. I'd be surprised if they didn't.
Yeah, I think I figure a lot of people will be getting this as their first Metroid Prime game, probably their first Metroid game in a lot of ways. Like whatever, it doesn't matter what kind of game this is. If it's on Switch, it's going to be the best selling Metroid game. So which is interesting because you brought up the Metroid sales earlier and saying, well, the original Metroid Prime sold better than Corruption and all of that, which is true. But there were like less games on the GameCube, so like. And Prime was earlier in its like lifespan. I think like if they did like a more of a Prime 3 style Prime, it would still like regardless what kind of Prime game you do, if it's on Switch, going to sell the best. So, yeah, maybe they do go back to that like kind of like the original Metroid Prime style, because at the end of the day, people are going to get it like kind of regardless. I was also thinking too. Since we're on the topic of music, as much as I do want it to stick to like the very synth heavy and electronic, and bass kind of heavy style that Metroid Prime has. I guess that's kind of like synthy and whatnot. Are you interested in some kind of orchestral stuff, like live, or like instruments and orchestra potentially, or whatever have you, or live instruments being played by musicians? Not saying that people who make electronic music aren't musicians, but you know what I'm saying, right? Like not that synthesizer like electronic music, but maybe not entirely shifting the whole soundtrack in that direction, but would you be interested in like maybe a section of the game like has some more live orchestral kind of stuff, or maybe the whole soundtrack over? Like, would you be down for that kind of revamp, or maybe just part of the game, or like a track here or there? Like, what do you think?
Like I really like the synthy style of Metroid Prime music. I'd be really interested to see that in like a Metroid Fusion remake or a Super Metroid remake or like the next 2D Metroid, where because there's actually, if you go and Google Super Metroid Symphony, there's a great YouTube playlist that runs through. I mean, is as the name implies, it's a symphony of all the music in Super Metroid, and it is fantastic. So like I wouldn't be opposed to that at all. I'll tell you a quick story. My only reservation about or like orchestrated music is I went and bought Dragon Quest 11 on the Switch, and like I was ready to love this game, and it has orchestrated music, which is great, but for whatever reason, I don't know if it was a money issue, but like they have so few tracks in that game that you literally hear the same orchestrated songs over and over and over again. So maybe that's just like an outlier, but in my head, I'm just like, man, like maybe it costs more to do orchestrated music. I mean, I'm sure it does. So I would rather the synthy kind of music than in like a wide variety of music than I would having like, 3, 4, 5, whatever, 10 tracks that are fully orchestrated. I'd rather the variety. But yeah, I mean, to answer your question, I think that the 2D Metroid is where that kind of music would really shine.
I'm with you there. I wouldn't want to see a whole full shift, but I was thinking like, oh, maybe it'd be cool if they took a track like as like maybe something was ramping up or you got later into the game and it was still synthy and like electronic, but they added like an instrument here or there and kind of like
I'm sure that could be awesome.
But I do think it could maybe work better with 2D, but we see again it always comes down to that execution for sure. Any last ones, any last ideas for Prime 4?
All right, one last one, and there's no real follow-up on it. I'll just say it. I think it'd be so awesome if Chorizo came back.
Okay.
I love that guy. I would love to fight that guy in 3D. I think that'd be great.
Chorizo 2. I'm gonna throw you one. I really hope that they get the Shine Spark and like the Screw Attack working somehow. I really want that. I think the Shine Spark would be really sick. Put me in 3D or like third person view and fix it or something like that. I think you gotta have those eventually. Like that's part of the Metroid experience to me. You gotta have those. And another one. Give me my Mountain Dew Monster Energy arm cannon skin. Okay, I want my I want my arm cannon buddies, and I want my customizable GameStop brand arm cannon skin. I think it would be cool if maybe we got a couple like special skins for the arm cannon or something to add on to it. It might be a little ridiculous and probably not good, but I was just thinking like, oh, maybe an arm cannon skin, a featured one or something like that, or you scan an Amiibo. Or Amiibo's still a thing? I don't know. But you scan an Amiibo and like it'll give you like a certain character's like custom arm cannon skin or something. I don't know. I thought that would be cool.
I loved actually playing Death Stranding, where you drink Monster Energy to refill Sam Porter Bridges' energy.
Yeah.
It was so ridiculous that it was actually awesome. So I wouldn't poo-poo on that. Okay, one last thing. You just said it. Give me some Metroid Prime 4 Amiibo.
Metroid Prime 4 Amiibo.
I love Amiibo.
Kraid. You get the big Kraid Amiibo. It's like a 4 times Amiibo. It takes up so much room.
Dude, that'd be so.
How sick would that be?
Let's get Silex. Let's get Samus. Let's get.
Gotta have another Ridley Amiibo.
Yeah,
because Ridley will definitely have to be in the game. I feel like I wasn't gonna like get into this and be like, oh, this game needs to have all the weapons from Hunters. It needs to have multiplayer and Ridley because I said that last time. But I do need a new Ridley Amiibo. That'd be cool. And I'm trying to think, what else would be cool? I think that's like that would be such a cool opportunity to have like going back to the different like enemy types and like these crazier bosses for like the quest system. You could have those as Amiibos, and like maybe if you scan that Amiibo for that beast or monster or alien, whatever it is, and then you go and you hunt it down and like maybe you get additional like a bonus, right, for whatever your upgrade was going to be, whatever your reward was for getting it if you scan the Amiibo first or something like that. Or you could scan Amiibo into the game. Like they add more monsters like after the game's released, they patch in more and like you maybe have to scan your Amiibo in to like unlock them so you can hunt down additional monsters, something like that. I don't know, I think that'd be kind of cool. Yeah, I'm trying to think of other ones. Maybe some new Metroid Amiibo, maybe a gunship Amiibo. That'd be cool.
That would be cool.
Yeah.
Honestly, we probably have enough for what do we want for Metroid Prime 4 Part 3, which very well could happen after we maybe finally get a glimpse of what Metroid Prime 4 is going to be.
Oh, they gotta get something. I can't wait for the episode where they actually show us something we could talk about it.
I know. I know. Okay, Dak, let's wrap this up. Do you have any kind of closing thoughts? What you want for Prime 4 or anything that you want to say before we get on out of here?
I really want them to give us some new information soon, please. I feel like we need we need some more info before we do yet another Metroid Prime 4 speculation episode. But something, give us a little tease, give us some info. I'll even take a tweet of, "Hey, we're still working on this game," and here's like a 30-second trailer, like something, please. Aside from that, another thing for Prime 4, I really hope they add as many controller options as possible. One of the things I like about Nintendo games historically is that, for, even like from the Wii and onward, I think they've been really good for offering as many different ways to play the game as possible. You're playing with the Pro Controller, Joy-Cons, GameCube controller, whatever it is. If I in a dream world, in an absolute dream world, I could plug in a mouse and keyboard, but that probably won't happen. But the more controller options, the better. At least if I could play it on dual analog, that'd be great. And I think that's just better to bring in more players, right? You don't have to necessarily buy this peripheral or that peripheral to play, or maybe you want to, or you want to play it your own way. I think that's the best way to go about it. And I also hope that motion controls are not at all a big deal in this game. I hate motion controls, and it also helps standardize like what kind of controls you can use, because obviously you can't like do all the same stuff with a Joy-Con as you can with like a Pro Controller. I didn't like motion controls in a lot of Wii games. Corruption, I suffered through them because I really like Prime 3 and I like Metroid, but in an ideal world, I wouldn't have any motion controls in Prime 4, and I hope that's the approach they take. But as long as I can play it in dual analog, it won't bother me.
Yeah, amen to that. All right, well, that's it. That's all. That's going to do it for us for this week. Thank you guys for listening. And we want to remind you that if you are on Google Podcasts or Alexa, Amazon, anything like that, you can check us out over on there. Omega Metroid is live and up and running over on those podcast platforms. And of course, it's up on Podbean, iTunes, and Spotify. So wherever you get your podcasts, go like and subscribe. And make sure to check us out over on Twitter at Omega Metroid Pod. I am at Spateri316. Dak is at Dak City. We are out of time, and we will see you next week.